Hello humans, my name is Dale Kingsmill, and we've made it to the final episode of this series of videos sponsored by Immortal Conquest. Immortal Conquest is a mobile strategy game that has a heavy influence from different mythologies from around the world. Since strategy plays such an important role in Immortal Conquest, I thought that I would talk about some ancient battles. Now it's interesting because mythology and history kind of collide in this area. For instance, we have our myths of the Trojan War, which involved the strategy of the Greeks getting past the impenetrable wall of Troy by hiding in a gigantic wooden horse that they gave to the Trojans as a gift. Or you have stories of real wars in which the Egyptians were defeated because the generals would herd cats in front of their armies. And so because of the Egyptian belief in cats as being divine, they didn't want to harm the cats, so they couldn't hurt the army either. I want to focus in on the story and strategy surrounding the Battle of Salamis. So, let me set the scene. The Spartans at Thermopylae have just been defeated, and partly as a result of this, and then partly also because of a loss at sea in the Battle of Artemisia, the Persians managed to take over the entire Greek mainland, pushing the united Greek forces back to the Isthmus of Corinth. In Athens, seeing the Persian army encroaching, this caused quite a stir. On the word of an oracle who said that the Persians would destroy all of Athens apart from a thin wooden wall, the Athenians evacuated their city, taking the thin wooden wall to mean that of the wooden boats, the triremes, apart from a very small contingent which set themselves up on the Acropolis because it was such a brilliantly defensible position. When the Persian army reached Athens, the city was empty apart from the Acropolis, and it took 2 full weeks of all-out assault, and supposedly it was only through the discovery of a secret passage that the Persians managed to get up onto the Acropolis and kill the remaining Athenians. Interestingly, the city of Delphi, which in Immortal Conquest is the key location to take control of, Delphi was not taken over by the Persians. Instead, the people of Delphi were informed that their god would look after the city. These huge statuesque arms that were never to be touched by mortal hands somehow wound up in front of the temple doors, blocking it off from entry. As the Persians began to enter the city, thunder and lightning racked the area, and accounts say that Xerxes' army was eventually run off by 2 enormous hoplites. So the nerd and veteran teams are gonna have a bit of a tricky time taking over Delphi, just saying. The united Greek forces stationed at the Isthmus of Corinth had a council of war to decide whether they should buckle down and defend this point by land, or whether, as in the view of the Athenian general Themistocles, they should take a more offensive approach, bringing the fight to Xerxes rather than passively waiting to take a final last stand. Most of the Greek nations were hesitant to take such a risky option, but seeing as Athens had evacuated its city rather than being taken over by force, a huge portion of the united Greek army was made up of Athenian ships. Themistocles, the Athenian general, threatened to withdraw his men unless they made a united front and stood to fight at Salamis. Salamis was on this island, which I'm going to put up a picture here because I don't know geographical terms, so I need to show you what I'm talking about. And it had these 2 straits of water that led up around the island. With the Athenians threatening to leave, it was agreed that the only course of action was to attempt to draw Xerxes into an unfavorable conflict near Salamis. Knowing where the much smaller Greek forces were hiding, Xerxes held his own war council. Only Queen Artemisia of Halicarnassus gave any words of wisdom. She stated that Xerxes should merely block each end of this water place around the island, you know what I'm talking about, and wait for the Greeks to run out of provisions. The Persian navy was massive, both in size of ships and number of ships. Their advantage was to wait out in open water to see if the Greeks would try to escape. Meanwhile, there was great restlessness in the Greek camp. They'd seen the boats moving to cut them off and were frightened that there would be no escape if the battle at Salamis went badly. Themistocles could see that he would have to act quickly before the united Greek front fell apart. And so, in a stroke of genius, he spread rumors, sent out messengers to exaggerate the disquiet among the Greeks even further, suggesting that perhaps even a split would occur, the Athenians defecting or surrendering out of frustration with the other Greek generals, baiting Xerxes into a premature attack. Some odd 2,000 ships in the Persian fleet had been lined up in the open water in 3 lines. But now, in order to go and attack the Greeks at Salamis in this perceived moment of weakness, Xerxes was forced to bottleneck his navy. And the Greek ships drew them further and further in, narrowing their front, until finally the Persian fleet was in such a difficult to maneuver position. The Greek ships may have been far fewer, but they were also smaller and better equipped for the conditions. And so it was that Themistocles' genius strategy led to the defeat of a 1,000-strong naval force by around 375 Greek ships. It was a decisive victory in the war. It led to the downfall of Xerxes and his army, and it indelibly marked the course of human history. Thank you so much for joining me in this series. Huge gratitude to Immortal Conquest for sponsoring the videos. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I know that I have. That's it for now, and I will see you some other time.